I call to order the Plan Commission meeting of May 22nd, 2018. We'll proceed with roll call.
Mr. Holman? Ms. Lazaris?
Here.
Mr. Magnuson?
Here.
Mr. Pearson?
Here.
Mr. Coots?
Here.
Mr. Schumacher?
Here.
And Mr. Foster previously informed staff that he be unavailable for this evening's meeting.
Okay. All right. Thank you. All right. The next item, item number 3, correction and/or approval of the minutes of April 24, 2018. Is there anyone who wants to make a motion regarding the minutes of April 24th?
So moved to accept as printed.
Second.
Been moved and seconded to accept the minutes as printed. Any discussion? In that case, we'll proceed with roll call vote.
Ms. Lazaris?
Aye.
Mr. Magnuson?
Aye.
Mr. Pearson?
Aye.
Mr. Coots?
Aye.
Mr. Schumacher?
Aye.
Motion passed 5-0.
At this time, I'd like to mention that there has been a request to move the final plat up to have it immediately after questions and public comment, because we have with us Corey O'Donnell of Loose Homes, who is out of town. We did review it the last time, so it may be a quicker item than we might otherwise anticipate. So moving on to number 4, questions and public comment. The public may address the commission regarding items on the agenda unless the item is the subject of a public hearing. If your comments pertain to a public hearing, please hold them until the hearing. We do have one public hearing this evening. Item number 5, conditional use request by William and Shelia Westrate for a boathouse at 539 West Lake Park Place, parcel 246-0713-1441-075. Public comment may also be made at this time on items not on the agenda if you have registered already with the city clerk. The state's open meeting law discourages action by the commission on items not listed on the agenda. Please keep comments limited to 3 minutes. State your name and address when starting comments. Also fill out the sign-in sheet at the podium. At this time, are there any public comments? All right, moving on then, and as I mentioned, we'll proceed actually with item number 7, discussion recommendation on final plat, Crestview Meadows, parcel 246-0714-1814-025. And we have before us the Plan Commission Motion 1852, final plat approval, Crestview Meadows subdivision. This motion sets forth the city's subdivision authority, the developer's proposed plat and final plat application, city staff review by Public Works Board, and this recommendation for conditional approval and Plan Commission review. The motion does recommend to the City Council final plat approval subject to submission of all supporting documentation, meeting requirements contained in the planner's memos and engineer's memos, in compliance with county requirements. Such recommendation is contingent upon all supporting documents submitted in final form within 120 days as to the planner's memo, and those recommendations that involve setbacks, correcting the side setback shown on the final plat, and then also access restriction for Lot 1, as we had mentioned the last time, prohibiting access to County Highway B, no access to Brookstone Drive within 75 feet of County B, no access to Crestview Lane within 20 feet of Brookstone Drive, and then sidewalks would be installed along Brookstone Drive and Crestview Lane. So those are the recommendations, and also we have the memo yet from Brandon Herbert of April 5. Has there been any change since the engineer did his recommendations?
Yes, there's been some stormwater drainage changes on the plat.
All right.
Those stormwater drainage plans may change the actual access to the lot next to Brookstone. Because they brought a stormwater inlet across and placed it behind the sidewalk, and then they've run the drainage along the back, and then they've kind of created a swell situation where the water will be held and then dropped into an inlet for some stormwater control.
Okay.
The other item that is a little bit different than we had discussed, but I assume it'll work, but it limits the driveway access. We did receive a notice from the county, which probably would have eliminated the driveway access, most of it anyway, so I'm assuming that this is the way that they'll construct the house. The one thing that the plat doesn't show doesn't show the sidewalk all the way up to Brookstone, all the way up Brookstone towards the lake, which is required.
All right.
That'll have to be added.
Okay, and that should be covered by the conditions mentioned in the motion.
Right.
Okay, very good. All right, so everything is on track for the final work on this plat and the
Right,
submission of the submittal of the final documents.
Right, the city attorney works on the developer's agreement with them, and they're in the process of
Okay.
handling that. I think he was finalizing some numbers on the roadway paving today, so
Okay.
that should be pretty much done.
And I can see that the Public Works Board also recommended approval, conditional approval with the
Conditional
same
approval
conditions.
on the construction plans, getting to the point where we were satisfied with it.
All right, very good, very good. All right. Well, we do have, is there anything that you want to show us on the screen and show the final plat again? Okay. Yeah, and then as we saw the last time, that is the plat of Crestview Meadows subdivision. All right. We do have motion 1852 recommending approval of the final plat with the conditions that were noted in the memos. Is there any motion at this time, or is there discussion? Did you have any comments, Mr. Wolf?
No, everything's pretty well outlined from what conversation we've already had. The memo was just confirming the corrections that were requested in the preliminary plat.
Okay. All right.
I'd move that we accept the motion as printed.
All right. It's been moved to accept motion 1852 recommending final plat approval as printed. Is there a second for this?
I'll second.
Been moved and seconded. Is there any discussion? All right, hearing none, then I'll proceed with the roll call vote.
Mr. Magnuson?
Aye.
Mr. Pearson?
Aye.
Mr. Coots?
Aye.
Mr. Schumacher?
Aye.
Mrs. Zaris?
Aye.
Motion passed 5-0.
Okay, all right, very good. And we, thank you, and thank you for the patience of the representative for William and Shelia Westrate. So now we will proceed with item number 5, public hearing, conditional use request, William and Shelia Westrate, Boathouse, 539 West Lake Park Place, Parcel 2460713441075. And I guess to begin the public hearing first, I'd like to ask consulting planner Dustin Wolf to provide his overview and recommendation for the Boathouse request.
Steve, if you can just scroll down just to show the site plan and for any of the viewers. So this is a property obviously located along Rock Lake. They're looking to redevelop the site, new residents, and a new boathouse, replace the old ones. Boathouses in the Lakeshore Residential Overlay District are permitted, but they do require conditional use. And that is because there are usually a series of concerns that the community has about boathouses to ensure they're constructed properly, to make sure that the shoreline and the shore cover is protected there. So the zoning code is very clear on what is required in siting a boathouse, in the size, and the shoreline cover. The boathouse has to be at least 3 feet back from the ordinary high water mark. The one proposed does meet that requirement. The size is limited to 400 square feet. It certainly complies with that. Some of the specific things that we really are concerned about here are the vision and access corridor requirements. So for a lot less than 100 feet, 30%, 100 feet wide, 100 feet of shoreline, 30% of the lot needs to be, can be removed for vision, for the boathouse, stairs, et cetera, but no more than that. So this property is 82 feet wide, so that results in 24 and a half feet of area that they, or shoreline, that they can do some selective clearing in and construct this boathouse in. And so it does comply with that. The shoreline buffer is required 35 feet inland from the ordinary high water mark. Again, that's to ensure that the kind of vegetative state along the shoreline is preserved, make sure we don't get into erosion issues. They are removing some selectively within that, but they are replanting a number of native planting species in there. They are going out of their way to preserve any healthy trees and vegetation as well in that area. The height of the boathouse is limited to 12 feet above lowest grade, which is shoreline, which is the water. It does comply with that. We do allow someone to have a flat roof so they can have a deck or some congregating space on it. So it does show that. And then the roof railing can't be more than 3.5 feet above the height of the structure, and it does comply with that as well. So all of the kind of key zoning requirements are met based on what's been approved, and the petitioner should be commended because their plans were very detailed. They did obviously review all the codes and ordinances to ensure that they were compliant. This was not a case where we needed to get additional information, so they should be lauded for that. Then with the conditional use, we do have that series of findings that need to be made in relation to the proposed conditional use. The first is the conditional use and its location in harmony with the goals, objectives, et cetera, of the comp plan. The comprehensive plan doesn't really make a specific recommendation for boathouses, but it does promote redevelopment of residential property, so it certainly is doing that. It does strive to protect the Rock Lake watershed and shoreland. The zoning code does do that, and they've complied with the zoning code, as we mentioned. At the end of the day, it's our opinion that it certainly is in compliance with kind of the goals and some of the policies outlined in the comprehensive plan through the application of the zoning code. Does the conditional use, next finding is, does the conditional use result in any substantial or undue adverse impact on adjacent properties, character of neighborhood, et cetera? Well, the Lakeshore Residential Overlay District is intended for the uniqueness of riparian owners. They do, it is expected to have a boathouse on properties that have lake access. So this property had a boathouse previously, had a home, so it's just redeveloping that. The architecture, the style of the boathouse being proposed is very similar to others in the area. There is nothing that's being requested here that's above and beyond what's outlined in the code. Certainly is, in our opinion, in keeping with the feel, aesthetics of that shoreline and those properties in that area. Does the conditional use for the next finding maintain the desired consistency of land uses and land use intensities? The property will be used in the same way it always has been, so there's no change there. It'll be a single-family home that meets all the code requirements, and of course a new boathouse. So nothing to mention there. Is the conditional use location adequately served by public utilities and facilities? Yes, this is a redevelopment, so all of the utilities and such are in place. There'll be no change outwardly to any property in the area. And then the last one is kind of the catch-all to the public. The potential public benefits of the conditional use outweigh any and all potential adverse impacts. The staff feels that the benefits certainly outweigh any potential adverse impacts. It's a redevelopment of a site that's certainly good for the neighborhood, certainly good for the tax base. They are diligently attending to all of the requirements of the zoning code, so all the shoreland issues will be achieved from what we're trying to accomplish as a community. So we don't feel that there are any really adverse impacts here that would come into play. So we're recommending approval.
Okay, all right, very well. Thank you, Mr. Wilk. Mr. Wilkie, did you have anything?
I just watch out for the builder.
Okay, all right, thank you. All right. All right, this is a public hearing, and we have the overview of the request. We have with us a representative of the applicants, Christian Stubbs, who is here, and that we have public hearings. So if you, and no one else is here, but if you wish to make any comments regarding this request, then we would just ask that you come up to the lectern and write your name and address and state it for the clerk. Does anyone wish to make any comments?
I don't think I need to.
Okay. All right, very well, very well. All right, hearing no one that wishes to approach the lectern for the public hearing, then I declare the public hearing closed. So we move on with item number 6, discussion recommendation, conditional use request, William and Shelia Westrate, Boathouse, 539 West Lake Park Place, Parcel 246-0713-1441-075. We have before us a prepared motion, motion 1851, William and Shelia Westrate, conditional use permit for Boathouse, 539 West Lake Park Place. This motion does set forth the city's zoning authority and the city's requirements for conditional uses in the zoning code. It sets forth the application for conditional use, the city review of the request, tonight's public hearing and plan commission review. The motion does recommend that the city council grant the request for conditional use permit subject to the recommendations contained in the planner's memo, and which these recommendations are that tree removal and vegetation be reviewed and approved by the city parks and forestry director prior to clearing. Second, that construction and occupancy of the boathouse commence simultaneously or after construction of the principal residence. And third, that the impervious surfaces on the site do not exceed 50% of the total lot area, which must be confirmed with the building inspector prior to issuance of building permits. By the recommendation in this motion, the Plan Commission makes the following findings. First, that the proposed conditional use will not be a detriment or endanger public health, safety, morals, comfort, or general welfare. Second, that it will not be injurious to the use and enjoyment of other property in the vicinity. Third, that it will not impede the normal and orderly development and improvement of surrounding property. Fourth, there are adequate utilities, access roads, drainage, and other necessary facilities. 5, ingress and egress are adequate. 6, the conditional use shall conform to applicable regulations of the district in which it is located. 7, the conditional use at its proposed location is in harmony with the purposes, goals, objectives, policies, and standards of the City of Lake Mills Comprehensive Plan. And 8, potential public benefits of the proposed conditional use outweigh any and all potential adverse impacts, and which Mr. Wolf covered in his review, these various items. So that is the prepared motion, and again, which incorporates the recommendations in the planner's memo. So,
Mrs. Harris?
yeah?
I'd just like to clarify the recommendations. Those are specific code requirements inside of the zoning code.
Yeah.
I guess we're putting them as conditions more to kind of call out that those are probably the most pertinent ones that are going to apply to the project to make sure they're not lost in the shuffle.
I think that's a good idea. Certainly. Okay. All right. We are in discussion. Plan commissioners and staff, do you have any comments, observations, questions concerning this request?
It appears that they've done due diligence and have done a good job in the layout there.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Yes, it
that
certainly
looks good.
does.
I would say that's probably the most comprehensive landscape plan we've ever seen for on the
I
lake.
think it
It's
is.
above and beyond.
Yeah, they've done an excellent job.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. Any other observations, comments, questions concerning the request? Okay, we have the prepared motion 1851. Is there anyone who wishes to make a motion concerning this prepared motion?
I would move for passage of Plan Commission Motion 18-5-1.
Okay.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded.
Whichever one you want.
Okay. It's been moved and seconded to pass motion 1851, which does recommend approval to the City Council for this conditional use according to the conditions stated within this motion. Is there any further discussion? All right, in that case, I'll proceed with roll call vote.
Mr. Pearson?
Aye.
Mr. Coots?
Aye.
Mr. Schumacher? Ms. Lazarus?
Aye.
Mr. Magnuson?
Aye.
Motion passed 5-0.
All right, and we did cover item 7, so we go on with item 8, recommendations for future agendas. Is there anything that we are aware of at this time for June or beyond? Okay. All right, very well. In that case, we proceed with item number 9, adjournment.
So moved.
It's been moved,
Second.
it's been seconded. Any discussion about that? All right, in that case, it's a call adjournment.